PR Connections Radio presents Voting is more than just a right, it's a powerful tool for change. Every vote counts and every voice matters. Voting protects your rights and helps to build a better future. And it's a way to hold our leaders accountable. Voting isn't just about the big elections either. Local elections impact our daily lives. It is important to study the candidates and the issues in order to make an informed decision. Don't sit it out. Your vote is your power.
Well, hi everyone, and welcome back to Breaking the Silence, Finding the Courage to Be Heard, the podcast where we turn quiet voices into confident voices. Now, I'm your host, Gail Larson, and for many people, the fear of public speaking isn't just about forgetting what to say, like I just did. It's about their voice when they try to sound in a way that they're not used to. The shaking, the cracking, the feeling that your voice is just simply betraying you at the exact moment when you need it. So today, we are going to talk about what happens when your voice shakes and why that doesn't really mean that anything has gone wrong. And this episode is called When Your Voice Shakes and Why That's Okay. And it's about releasing shame and redefining what strength really sounds like. Now, today I have with me Christina, and I've gotten to know Christina through Toastmasters. So hi, Christina. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. I'm actually enjoying some time off here in Texas. It's actually very warm here. I'm used to the San Francisco Bay Area weather, which is a huge change, but now they're starting to warm up too. So you know what? I'm just enjoying the weather, warm weather, and just some free time before I start my next career.
That's awesome. And hopefully we'll get an opportunity to talk about that search for your new career during this chat time that we have. So speaking of new career, tell us a little bit about yourself. What led you to this place?
So I am a native of Weatherford, Texas, which is near Dallas, Fort Worth. I decided to pursue a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry degree at Texas A&M University. I graduated in May 2015 and also received a commission from the United States Navy. Soon after, I was deployed to Japan and was on 2 different ships over there, and then transitioned to the nuclear power side of the Navy and did that for a couple of months before moving on. That's another story, a very personal story of why I decided to end my nuclear career early, but I still got that experience, which was very rewarding. And then I went to several different places like Bahrain, and I was stationed in Bahrain for 2 years, not now, but a couple of years before. And so seeing all that on the news has been very interesting to see, because I literally have seen my office building very close to the attack on the base. So it's just, I'm very thankful that I'm no longer there. At the same time, I'm definitely concerned for my friends that are still over there. So if you're praying, please pray for my friends who are still over there in Bahrain. And then right now I'm actually out of the Navy, but then just got notified that I'm entering into the reserves. There's a key difference between active duty and reserves. Reserves is just like, you have to be ready to serve if they need you, but enjoy some time off at the same time.
Oh, wow. And I remember the last time that we spoke briefly after one of our Toastmasters meeting, you were mentioning that you were waiting to hear about your status as far as the reserves. So congratulations as far as all of that is concerned. That's outstanding. And thank you very much for your service. It's been like almost a decade or over a decade that you were in the United States Navy. So I can only imagine how traumatic it has been watching how everything has unfolded so quickly. Well, over the last 5 weeks, I think it's been.
Yeah.
So, and yes, I also am praying for the service men and women out there as well. So, um, earlier you had mentioned something about a childhood experience that's related to the topic that we are covering today. Would you like to elaborate on that a little bit?
Uh, yes. So when I was around 12 years old, unfortunately, my dad passed away in the most unnatural circumstances.
Mhm.
He died too early, and the cause of death was not sickness or a car accident, it was murder. And so, and my sister and I were key witnesses to the murder. So I had to go into the courtroom when I was 12 years old to testify against the person that did it. And I remember having to stare into that man's face several times during the courtroom session. And it was very scary and it hurt. So my voice was of course choking up and I was very nervous, especially in front of the jury, the everyone else in that courtroom, the lawyers, the person that killed my father. Yeah. So it was very scary. And when I had to pause to gather myself up to answer the question, then my voice would crack. And the thing is, though, I noticed I wasn't the only one being emotional. There were jurors actually crying because of what I had to experience. And it's just that was very heartwarming because they felt my pain. And I'm even starting to get a little choked up now talking about it. But yeah, it's okay to, have your voice crack, especially in a very emotional situation, because everyone would experience it, not just you.
Absolutely. I can't even imagine being in that situation as a 12-year-old. I mean, I think back, to the way I was when I was 12 and the way most people are, you're pretty happy-go-lucky. And then, when something like this happens and then you have to hit it, head on by having to testify. And did they have someone that prepared you for this in any way? Like, I don't know, a counselor or, social services. I don't know. How did they work with you before you had to take the stand?
So before I took the stand, I actually was taken to a side room with a counselor, and she just kind of told me what to expect. And then she said, if you cry, don't worry about it. Okay. This is to be expected, that this is a very emotional, traumatic experience for you. So, just feel your emotions. Don't worry about it.
And you know what? That kind of advice that they gave you is actually the same type of advice that really speakers should take firsthand. I mean, think about when we're in our Toastmaster meetings and someone gets ready to speak either extemporaneously or prepared speech. A lot of times, we as speakers, we're worried about what the reaction of the audience is going to be, even more so than our shaky voice or our nerves and that kind of thing. So being told, like you were told by the person that prepared you, don't worry about what they think. Don't worry about what happens out there. Just focus on you and, what it is, relaying what it is that you're trying to say. So yes, that was very good advice. So
Yeah. And then after I testified, for some reason, I just had a big smile on my face and I was cheering to the heavens. I'm like, I
it
got through that. I got through it.
that is really outstanding, outstanding. And I commend you again, just right here, having the courage to share that story because, as you see, and as, our audience that who are listening, they could see how emotional you still are about that. I mean, it's something that will always be with you.
Mhm.
And Going back to your military experience, were you called to speak in any capacity during that time and experienced any of this kind of nervousness and shakiness of your voice or any kind of physical reaction?
Yes. So I will tell two short stories about that. So the first one is that, sometimes we have to discipline the sailors, like especially if they make a big mistake or they hurt someone. So when I was in charge of deck department, those are the guys that are, chipping and painting and, just had some rough times in their life and just weren't smart enough for the other like things like a sonar tech or like a nuclear engineer. So, they're just on the ground a lot. And sometimes when they're hot, sweaty, and irritable, they just do things that are stupid, like pushing or even punching. And so we have to hold them accountable during a non-judicial punishment, which is, just kind of like a courtroom, but it's just with the captain and the chain of command. So there were several times where I had to speak to the captain directly in front of these sailors about what my opinion was. And usually it was in very short sentences. I didn't speak as more than I needed to. And that was a very short circumstance when I had to speak. Now, the other story is when I had to wake up the sailors and yell at them because one of them had missed their watch. And I was woken up at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning to do this. And so, of course, I was upset that I had to be woken up because one of my sailors missed their watch. And so I woke them up, and it's a very scary situation because here I am, a female officer, having to go into male berthing to figure this out in the middle of the night. So it's just like there are some boundaries you have to be very careful. And so in my anger too, my voice was cracking a lot. And some of the sailors thought it would be funny to smirk every time that happened. So, and then I was like, okay, you really want to go there? So I just kept getting more and more angry, and I used that power to make my voice stronger. So those are two circumstances. Most of the time it was disciplining the sailors and being that strong leader that they needed.
Wow. And you bring up a really important point because in the military, just like in any other aspect of life, there's that hierarchy involved. When speaking to those that may have more experience than you, and then you were in a leadership position where you were speaking to those who were supposed to follow you, but as a woman and as someone, and this was 10 years ago when you started doing this, you might have even been perceived as a lot younger than some of the people that had to report to you. So those are like two boundaries or, two hurdles, I should say, that you had to jump over and control your voice at the same time and give that, spirit of authority that they would respond to in an appropriate way without smirking.
Yes. Oh, trust me, they stopped smirking once I started yelling even louder and more stronger. They're like, okay, she is serious.
Absolutely. And it reminds me too, when I first got into teaching, and that was 152,000 years ago. And I started teaching at the same school where my mother was currently teaching, and she had already spent, 30 years teaching in the district. And it was difficult for me to assert authority because a lot of her fellow teachers knew me, as her daughter, and I knew them as Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so because there was that level of hierarchy. So I had to assert myself as well into a situation that, where the balance of power was changing. So, and then while we're talking about speaking and using our voices effectively, I want to refocus back on our Toastmasters experience, and particularly story topics. And I'm going to let you explain to our audience what Story Topics is before I ask the question.
Okay. So, Story Topics is an opportunity for guests and members to tell a short story that usually lasts 1 to 2 minutes long. And it's just a random topic that the storyteller or story master comes up with. And like normally the guests and members have no idea what's coming. So, it's very impromptu.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. And think about a time when you had a question that, of course, you weren't expecting, because none of us are ever expecting that question. How's that been for you? You know, do you remember a particular time, or how do you feel about that whole impromptu speaking?
So when I first started, I was only speaking for maybe 40 seconds to a minute. But over time, I got better to a point where I was even going over time a little bit, past the 2 minutes. So it took a lot of practice to find that middle ground where they want you to be in between 1 to 2 minutes. And one question that really surprised me was like, if you were an elephant, what would you say to a person that was doing something stupid? It was just very random. Like it was like the theme was surrounded with an elephant. And so like I had to pretend to be an elephant in this story, and there were a lot of grammatical mistakes, but I went through it still because I actually enjoyed that topic.
Yeah, that's hilarious. But maybe what they were trying to do is get you to be empathetic to the feelings of an elephant.
Yes.
I don't know. Anyway, yeah. What were you going to say?
I was going to say elephants are actually very smart, and they say that they have better long-term memory than we do because of their larger hippocampus. So how I portrayed the elephant was like the super like authoritative, as well as I just like very wise elephant instead of a very sympathetic elephant.
Well, for those of you out there who are listening and are thinking this is pretty outrageous, you need to seek out a Toastmasters club in your area or in another area virtually, because you will really gain some very valuable experiences about being prepared to speak and off the cuff speaking as well. So, I actually recently joined a second Toastmasters club that is located in San Francisco. It's a bilingual Toastmasters club, really for the purpose of improving my Spanish, because I don't get to use Spanish as much. And I felt very much like just the newbie, and that I was very nervous about speaking, and especially speaking off the cuff. So I encourage anyone out there who is curious about how to improve their communication. Toastmasters is a wonderful way to do that. So Christina, whenever you get an opportunity to speak in a situation where you feel nervous, have you felt that trying to control that nervousness or control the shakiness actually does more harm than good?
Yes, I would say so. And also interacting with other Toastmasters, they say the exact same thing. And the best thing to do is just to go with the flow. Like just let it go through your system and just keep going. Because if you are also trying to correct that nervousness while you're trying to speak, it just creates a landslide that just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And then all of a sudden you're losing your space and your like speech. And so it's best just to, let it go. Just brush it off, brush off and just keep going. Don't worry about your squeakiness or your pitch, especially if you know it's to be an issue, you just keep going.
Yep, that's truly good advice. which actually kind of takes me to my next question. And that has to do with, do you have any other advice or suggestions for people who are trying to control their shaky voice or their nervousness when they get ready to speak in a situation where they don't feel as comfortable?
So I would say just think of a moment where you are at your highest peak, and maybe speaking in front of the crowd is your highest peak because you are now in a position of power. You're making your voice heard, whereas there are other people who may not have that courage, but you decide that day and in that moment to be in that position to speak. And so do not care about your squeakiness or your crackiness, or just keep speaking because they are listening to what you have to say, because you are choosing to be in that moment, whereas they may be a little too much scared to do it, but you are up there, and that squeaky voice is a roar to the heavens.
Absolutely. A roar to the heavens. I have to use that sometime.
Yes.
So earlier, before you found out that you would be part of the reserves, you had mentioned that you were also seeking some other job opportunities. Have you been interviewing?
So I've only had one interview so far. I actually talked about it in Toastmasters a little bit, but I admit I was kind of like having too much fun with that interview. So to be honest, I would not be surprised if they don't contact me back. But at the same time, it's just like you kind of learn as you go. And so it was for defense programs at Department of Energy. Just because of my nuclear background, I felt like I could do something, and especially interact with Congress because I do speak a lot now. And so I feel like I have the confidence and the skills to do that. If they don't get back to me, that's okay. I've applied to other jobs like instructor in San Diego for physical sciences, and it looks like it's on the base. So it seems like they need a science teacher for the sailors for some of their programs over there. There are definitely nuclear carriers and submarines over in San Diego, so that's one position I can do. Another position is being an engineer for the Naval Nuclear Laboratories. And so like shipbuilding is now becoming a huge deal. We're wanting to build more ships, especially nuclear powered ships. So they can use more nuclear engineers, or at least people with some experience, to train them up to the level that they want them to be. And so I have experience. It may not be as much as the other nuclear engineers, but it's something. So like I've been talking to my mentor about it, and he's like, don't sell yourself short. Like you have a lot more experience than these college kids who are fresh out of college. So don't discount that. And, it's really funny how we're our own worst enemy when it comes to like criticism.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I just can't tell you how impressed and somewhat intimidated talking to a nuclear engineer. And a lot of times people will assume that people of a certain status communicate differently, like nuclear engineers. They're very astute and speak in a certain way, as opposed to, I don't know, other professions that speak in a certain way as well. So as you have grown in your advanced education to become a nuclear engineer, have you noticed that people expect the expectations of others for how you should communicate with them?
So to be honest, nukes are seen as mostly introverted nerds that are very stubborn and also very smart. And so when I was talking to my mentor, who is also a nuclear engineer, he was like saying, Christina, you're one of the most humble engineers I've met. And it's very refreshing because you admit when you think something you say is wrong, or you check on your on what you're saying. Whereas, all the other nukes, we call ourselves nukes, all the other nukes have, they just say it and then they stick with it. They don't question what they're saying like you do. And then also, yes, introverted nerds, we like our space, but at the same time, we like to talk about how much we know, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think it's that way with anyone who feels like they're an expert in their field. You could just touch on one point and all of a sudden we're rambling off about everything that we know about that situation before we even realize that the other person is like, okay.
Yeah.
But that hasn't happened here, and that's never happened at any time that I've talked to you. I've always been totally 100% engaged in all of your experiences. I just think that everything that you've done has been fascinating, and I truly look forward to seeing what you do and where you end up, and especially if you end up in San Diego. I mean, would you actually move to San Diego, or this would be a virtual instruction experience?
They would actually expect me to move to San Diego because it literally said in the job description that some of the information is considered classified. So I think I have an idea what that information may be. But yeah, it's just the certain spaces or certain information or equipment is classified, and they need people to teach that classified information. So it would make sense why they need me over there physically instead of doing it virtually.
Well, if you find out that you actually have to go to San Diego, definitely let me know, because we go to San Diego quite often. I have my son and his fiance live in the Mission Valley area, and so we go there any chance we get, because I live in the desert and I need to have water. That's why I have the water behind me, because I always get reminded. So if that actually happens, or you find yourself, scoping things out, see me as a resource as well. But I don't know, have you ever lived in San Diego before?
I've only lived there temporarily. So the longest I lived there was maybe about 8 weeks, and it was because of training as a fresh junior officer. So there are 2 points where they have officer training. One of them is in San Diego and the other one is in Norfolk, Virginia. So it's just, they have opposite coasts, just depending where you're going. So when I was a freshly commissioned officer, I was headed to Japan. So the West Coast was the best coast to send me to for training before I went to Japan.
Wow. Well, wherever you end up, I'm sure you're going to be just amazingly successful. And I just want to thank you for agreeing to be on Breaking the Silence and just helping us all to really hear our voices as they are, as opposed to, expecting criticism for the shakiness and all of that. So thank you so, so much. And to our audience, this has been Breaking the Silence, finding the courage to be heard. And until next time, we'll just let your voice shake and speak anyway. Bye.
Classy Communications provides public relations and marketing solutions for businesses, professionals, and nonprofit organizations. They can deliver the true meaning of your business with press releases, social media marketing, web development, email marketing, book publishing, and much more. Wherever your potential clients are, they can help you connect with them. Visit classycommunications.net to learn more about their suite of services that can help your business stand out from the rest. Classy Communications is your solution for business success. PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.